Imagine making the movie that stamps your name into Hollywood history, then spending the next 66 years dodging even a single rewatch. Why would anyone walk away from the film that launched them into legend? That mystery clings to Angie Dickinson like the delicate perfume she once wore on set, and peeling back the layers takes us deep into hidden rivalries, lost love, and one heartbreaking family secret that few outsiders ever hear. Most people meet Angie in 1959's Rio Bravo, but her story begins far from movie lights. Angeline Brown grew up in a nowhere North Dakota town where her dad cranked the local paper's presses by day and projected flickering reels by night. When the theater burned down, 10-year-old Angie bawled for a week, swearing off movies for Lent so God might rebuild the place. Moving to Burbank after the Second World War flipped her world upside down. Suddenly, the Browns lived a short bike ride from Warner Bros. Studio gates. That new zip code worked its quiet magic. Yet, Angie kept her head in books, certain she'd become a journalist like Dad. A last-minute entry in a 1953 beauty pageant upended the plan. She didn't win, but producers spotted her, and she never looked back. Her first gigs were blink-and-you-miss-them walk-ons across TV westerns, but audiences perked up anyway. She had what casting folks called alert eyes, the sort that sparkle even in grainy black and white, and directors knew they could drop her in a scene and trust viewers to follow. By 1956, she'd logged parts beside James Arness in Gun the Man Down, then broke into wider release with the Rat Pack-flavored crime caper Lucky Me. That steady climb taught her two truths. Hollywood never hands out permanence, and being underestimated can be an ace up one's sleeve. But nothing could prepare her for Howard Hawks, the cigar-chewing titan who cast her opposite John Wayne, Dean Martin, and Ricky Nelson in the dust-blown thriller Rio Bravo. Hawks renamed her Feathers and told reporters the character was all sass, no safety net. Off-camera, Angie spent nights in her motel room scribbling notes, terrified she'd fumble a line in front of Wayne's hulking silhouette. She later confessed that each take felt like a pop quiz on her own worth. The film opened to rave reviews, yet Angie cringed at seeing her jitters play out on screen, so she simply stopped watching. Viewers, on the other hand, scooped up every rumor swirling around that shoot. Some whispered that teenage crooner Ricky Nelson nursed a secret crush. Others claimed Wayne demanded Hawks cut her close-up short because the kid's eyes steal scenes. Angie never confirmed either tale, but years later she called the set equal parts boot camp and dream. Even that hazy compliment couldn't tempt her back to a living room screening. The memories were too raw. What Rio Bravo did unleash was an appetite for Angie's brand of gutsy glamour. Frank Sinatra spotted her in Ocean 11 the very next year and cracked, "That lady's tougher than half the boys." The throwaway line sparked Hollywood's loudest will they, won't they saga. Sinatra and Angie teetered on the edge of marriage in 1964, ring rumors filling gossip columns. Decades later, she finally admitted they'd carried on an on-again, off-again romance for nearly 20 years, calling Old Blue Eyes the love who never got boring. Sinatra wasn't her only headline. Late-night host Johnny Carson landed on Angie's dating scorecard, so did broadcaster Larry King, and whispers tied her to everyone from Glenn Ford to future President Ronald Reagan. The loudest speculation, however, linked her to John F. Kennedy. Tabloids printed blurry party photos, and conspiracy buffs painted Angie as the mystery woman behind Camelot's curtains. She's shut that door again and again. No dates, no trysts, no reason to think I was seeing him. But the story refuses to die. Just as the gossip mill reached fever pitch, Angie made her most daring career pivot: television cop drama Policewoman. NBC executives promised household name status, and they delivered. The show rocketed to #1 in dozens of countries. Angie's Sergeant Pepper Anderson cracked criminals, disguised herself in daring undercover get-ups, and brandished a revolver with more grit than half the primetime men. The role earned her a Golden Globe, plus Emmy nods 3 years straight. But the grind was brutal. By the series finale in 1978, she was fried, calling to pay peanuts and grumbling about endless bathtub scenes designed just to flash her famous legs. That frustration spilled over decades later when Angie waded into the My Too discourse. Asked about the movement's tidal wave of allegations, Angie snapped that Hollywood was blowing a busted hand way out of proportion, then dropped a firecracker. An open robe isn't the same as assault. Depending on whom you ask, her bluntness was either refreshing honesty or tone-deaf dismissal. The internet roared for weeks, delivering Angie a brand new round of controversy at 87 years old. While cameras loved her, real life barreled through with all its harsh edges. Angie's 1965 wedding to Burt Bacharach looked like a magazine cover. Hearts, hit records, and Hollywood sunshine, but cracks formed fast. Burt admitted in his memoir that fidelity never ranked high on his to-do list. Angie later quipped, "He loved in his own way, which isn't much of a way at all." Those words stung, yet they stayed legally bound until 1981, tethered by one fragile link, their daughter, Leah Nikki. Nikki arrived 3 months premature, battling visual impairment and what doctors eventually labeled Asperger's. Angie shelled scripts to become full-time guardian, mastering the maze of specialists, therapy sessions, and meltdowns that parents of neurodiverse kids know too well. Burt's touring schedule meant she shoulder-rolled into single mother territory long before the divorce papers. For Angie, the toughest scene of her life unfolded off-screen, in hospital corridors and dim bedrooms lit by nightlights. At 40, Nikki tragically offed herself after a lifelong tug-of-war with inner demons. Angie called it a heartbreak beyond language, and friends say she never fully mended. Even so, she refused to hide her daughter's story, hoping candor might shine a light for families marching the same hard road. The 80s and 90s turned Angie into Hollywood's favorite guest star. She seduced audiences and idle censors in Brian De Palma's steamy thriller Dressed to Kill, popping into a locker room sequence that still tops lists of movie moments your parents hoped you'd miss. She swapped laughs with Rip Torn on HBO's Larry Sanders Show and cracked the whip in Oliver Stone's dystopian miniseries Wild Palms. Each appearance reminded viewers that a woman in her 50s and 60s could radiate danger, humor, and sexuality without apology. Time kept ticking, but Angie's public magnetism barely flickered. Fans spotted her at the 2023 TCM Classic Film Festival, still chic in a cream-colored pantsuit, fielding autograph requests with the same sly grin she flashed at the Rat Pack. A few months later, she popped up in a Beverly Hills Bistro Instagram snap, another reminder that, almost 95 now, she still slides effortlessly between recluse and social butterfly. Yet even with that silver screen sparkle intact, Angie remains deeply private. Industry chatter suggested she'd begun drafting a memoir. One insider swore she'd filled 3 spiral notebooks with behind-the-scenes bombshells, but she shelved the project when early pages leaked to a tabloid. Some claim the unpublished chapters detail a hidden final conversation with Sinatra. Others insist they reveal which Hollywood titan once blacklisted her for rejecting his advances. Whether those notebooks exist is anyone's guess, and Angie plays coy, muttering, "Maybe I'm protecting the guilty, maybe I'm protecting the innocent." Her refusal to revisit Rio Bravo ties every thread together. Seeing her 27-year-old self triggers that ancient self-doubt, but also reopens wounds connected to Ricky Nelson. He was barely 18, guitar slung over his shoulder, when the cast holed up an old Tucson to shoot the film. Angie recalls swapping jokes by the craft tent, mentoring him through on-set nerves, and even sneaking orange sodas during desert lunch breaks.
Nelson's 1985 plane crash death stopped her mid-stride one December morning, the way a sudden thunderclap can jar you out of sleep. Re-rolling the movie would mean watching the boy's wide grin, knowing the real-world obituary waiting off-screen. Then there's the emotional time capsule locked in every frame. Her first big-budget contract, her fear of failing, the moment Hawks yelled print and she realized millions would judge her performance forever. Rewatching that feels like standing in front of a funhouse mirror. It shows who she was and who she might have been if even one line delivery went differently. So Angie lets the reels gather dust, granting strangers the right to love Rio Bravo while she preserves her own memories in amber. Rumor hunters are still not satisfied. In 2024, a clickbait site claimed Angie secretly screened the film at home, clutching tissue boxes and confessing to friends she'd been too hard on herself. Her publicist shot down the story within hours, calling it creative fan fiction. The internet shrugged and moved on to the next theory, that Angie struck a quiet deal with a streaming giant to appear in a retrospective docuseries. Industry insiders smell smoke, but no contract has surfaced, and Angie herself only offers that sly grin. Even her health becomes gossip fodder. A 2023 interview revealed she still makes her own breakfast and slips in daily walks around Beverly Hills, crediting sunshine, laughter, and never skipping dessert for her longevity. Yet anonymous sources claim she's nursing a knee problem and turned down a cameo because the flight would be too damn long. Angie neither confirms nor denies, she just jokes, "When the knees quit, I'll still have my mouth, and that's gotten me plenty far." Oddly, her fiercest critics now rally around that #MeToo interview. Some younger viewers brand her comments outdated, arguing she dismisses survivors. Others cheer her fearless bucking of modern orthodoxy. Angie listens, shrugs, and points out that Hollywood once demanded she sit quietly while men debated whether women could headline a crime show. She says, "I earned my right to speak, even if some folks hate the sentence." Through triumphs, scandals, and unimaginable grief, one constant threads through Angie Dickinson's life: unflinching honesty. She'll praise John Wayne's generosity while ribbing his politics, confess Sinatra's flaws while admitting she thrills him to this day, and broadcast her parenting missteps so other families feel less alone. Honesty is the compass guiding every decision, including the decision to leave Rio Bravo. So what do we make of an icon who steps away from her signature movie and never looks back? Maybe it shows that success doesn't erase insecurity. Maybe it proves memories can cut deeper than any critic's review. Or maybe it sums up Angie's essence. She lives forward, not backward, never allowing nostalgia to stall her next adventure. And that brings us to you, screen glowing in front of your face. When the credits roll tonight, ask yourself, which moment in your past is so charged you'd rather feel it in your bones than replay it on a flat screen? Angie Dickinson's answer shaped her entire legend. Yours might shape the rest of your life, because sometimes the memories we refuse to revisit reveal more than any story we dare to tell.